Martell, Holt and Harper are two men who have both made strong names for themselves in their own fields, but what happens when their paths cross in a way no one could have predicted? This is not just a story about a minor disagreement or a quick misunderstanding. This is about a situation that turned into a storm of emotions, ego clashes, and a shocking secret that pulled Melody into the middle without warning. She never asked for this, yet she became the center of a conflict that would test friendships, trust, and reputations. From the beginning, Martell and Harper were seen as men with drive, ambition, and presence. Harper was already well known to many because of his respected acting career, his work as an author, and his ability to speak on deep topics that inspired people. He carried himself with a quiet but clear authority, the kind that makes people listen without him having to raise his voice. Martell, on the other hand, had his own way of commanding attention. Charismatic, outspoken, and not afraid to take risks, he had built his brand in the entertainment and business world with bold moves and a style that stood out. When they first crossed paths, the energy between them seemed positive. They respected each other's talents, and there was even talk of working together on projects. Publicly, they appeared united, sharing each other's work, supporting one another, and giving the impression that this was a relationship built on mutual admiration. But beneath that surface, there were signs that things were not as simple as they looked. People close to both men started noticing subtle differences in how they operated. Martell was very direct, sometimes blunt, and liked to speak his mind immediately. Harper preferred a more calculated approach, taking time to think before making a move or responding. These differences may not sound like a big deal, but in environments where both men had influence, it began to cause friction. The first cracks showed in small ways, minor disagreements over ideas, leadership styles, and who should have the final say in certain discussions. What started as professional rivalry began to shift into personal tension. It wasn't that they disliked each other entirely, but they each had strong personalities, and neither was used to stepping aside. The tension grew quietly at first, but it would not stay hidden for long. Then came Melody. She had close ties to both men and never imagined that her relationships with them would put her in such a complicated position. She wasn't just a casual acquaintance, she was someone they both trusted. She had been there to listen, to support, and to encourage them in their personal and professional lives. In many ways, she was a bridge between their worlds. But that bridge soon became the place where the pressure from both sides collided. As disagreements between Martell and Harper became more frequent, Melody found herself in the role of mediator. She tried to smooth over situations, calm tempers, and remind them of the bigger picture. Sometimes, she spoke to them separately, passing along messages in a way she thought would help. Other times, she tried to get them to meet in person and talk things through. But what she didn't realize was that every step she took to help could also be misunderstood. Each man began to interpret her actions in his own way. Wondering if she was favoring the other or if she was truly neutral, the situation reached a turning point during a private event where both Martell and Harper were present. This was supposed to be a relaxed evening, a networking night where people could enjoy themselves, share ideas, and possibly open doors to new collaborations. Melody was there as well, and she had hoped this might be an opportunity for the two men to put aside differences, at least for the night. But what happened instead shocked everyone in the room. According to those who were there, a conversation between Martell and Harper started off civil but quickly became tense. A disagreement over a past decision came up, and before anyone could step in, voices were raised. The atmosphere shifted instantly. What was once light and social became heavy and awkward. People nearby could feel the tension, and Melody, standing just a few steps away, was caught completely off guard. The exchange escalated to the point where harsh words were thrown, and both men made it clear they were not on the same page. It was a moment that left the room in stunned silence. After that night, things were never the same. Melody continued to try and mend the relationship between them, but it became harder. She reached out individually, hoping that private conversations could soften the edges of their conflict. But the more she tried, the more complicated it became. The men's trust in each other was already damaged, and now trust in her was being quietly questioned too. Then came the revelation that would change everything. Melody stumbled upon a secret, something neither Martell nor Harper had expected to be uncovered. It wasn't just a small piece of gossip, it was the kind of information that could shift how they saw each other entirely. The way she found out is still not fully clear. Some say she overheard a conversation, others believe it came from a message that was shown to her by accident. Whatever the case, it was a discovery that cut deep into the foundation of trust between the two men. This secret involved both professional matters and personal boundaries. It revealed actions and decisions that clashed with the public image both Martell and Harper had carefully built. For their fans, these were men of success and confidence, but what Melody now knew showed another side, a side filled with manipulation, broken promises, and hidden tensions. When she finally decided to share what she had discovered with both men, the reaction was intense. Martell felt betrayed and reacted with anger, demanding explanations and questioning loyalties. Harper was caught between shock and defense, trying to process the fact that something he thought was contained was now out in the open. The balance between them shattered completely. For Melody, this was perhaps the hardest point in the entire ordeal. She had gone from being the person trying to hold things together to being seen as the reason the final break happened. The weight of it was heavy. Friends close to her say she felt trapped, isolated, and overwhelmed. She hadn't asked to be in the middle, and yet here she was, taking hits from both sides. As if the private fallout wasn't enough, word of the drama began to leak. At first, it was whispers, quiet speculation among those in their circle. But in the age of social media, nothing stays small for long. Soon, it was a public matter. Posts appeared online, people began to take sides, and entertainment news outlets picked up the story. The conflict that had once been contained between a few people was now being dissected in the public eye. Martell responded by becoming more closed off. He avoided giving too much away in public, but those who watched closely noticed his tone in interviews changing, more guarded, more careful. Harper, in contrast, seemed to take a more measured public stance, speaking in ways that addressed the importance of respect and calm without directly diving into details. Melody was now under her own spotlight, facing questions from all directions. Some painted her as the peacemaker caught in an impossible situation, others saw her as someone who had played a part in fueling the fire. She handled the situation with carefully chosen words, trying to calm the storm rather than feed it, but the pressure was undeniable. Behind the scenes, rumors continued to swirl, about private meetings, possible reconciliations, and fresh betrayals. Every action the three took was studied and analyzed, making it nearly impossible to move forward without the past being dragged along. But ironically, this public attention forced them to face the situation more directly than they might have otherwise. The drama pushed each of them into deep self-reflection. Martell admitted that the experience made him rethink how he communicates and how ego can get in the way of resolution. Harper began to open up to the idea that vulnerability and forgiveness were not weaknesses, but strengths. Melody, who had been through an emotional storm, came away with a new understanding of boundaries and the importance of protecting her own peace, even when trying to help others. In time, there were conversations, real, honest ones, where apologies were made and truths acknowledged. Not everything was fixed, not every wound healed. But there was a shared recognition that holding on to bitterness would only hurt more in the long run. They began to take careful steps toward coexistence, even if full trust might never return. This situation was more than just a piece of celebrity gossip. It was a reminder that even those who seem to have it all together can find themselves caught in messy, painful conflicts. It showed the difficulty of balancing personal relationships with public images, the fragile nature of trust, and the fact that secrets, no matter how carefully hidden, have a way of coming out. For the fans and the public, it was easy to get caught up in the drama, to choose sides, and to speculate. But for the people involved, it was a real test of character, patience, and resilience. It was about learning when to speak up, when to step back, and when to let go. In the end, Martell, Harper, and Melody each walked away with lessons they would carry into the future. And while the story may have started with competition and conflict, it ultimately became about growth, self-awareness, and the long, often difficult road to rebuilding trust.